Okay, everybody. Hello, and thank you all very much for joining us today. I think we're going to get started with today's session. So thank you very much for all joining us at today's session on job hunting as a recent graduate. My name is Tom Davis, and I'm a Graduate Employability Officer at the University of Leeds Careers Centre. Delighted to be joined by Danielle Buckland from the Graduate Recruitment Bureau. This is the first in a series of 2 events that we've got coming up in September aimed at recent graduates who are still looking for jobs and careers. We've got, so this one today on job hunting as a recent graduate, and then we've got another one taking place at the same time next Wednesday on career planning and career decision making. We'll be sharing details about that at the end. As I said, we're delighted to be joined by Danielle today, who's a University of Leeds graduate herself. She's got a presentation about her story and some of her advice on how to how to find jobs. And after that, we'll have a Q&A session. You'll have the chance to ask any questions you have for Danielle. If you could submit those via the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, that'd be absolutely great. There's also the capacity on Zoom to like people's comments and questions. So if there's any questions submitted that you think, yeah, I'd really like to know the answer to that, or it's something you were going to ask yourself, rather than duplicating, if you just like that, that will give us a sense of like what the pressing questions are and what the ones that people really want to hear about. As part of the registration for this event, you also have the opportunity to pre-submit some questions, and we've got quite a few that were submitted from people for that. So we will be covering some of those as well. So don't panic and feel the need to pop in the Q&A function if you've already pre-submitted. We'll try and get to as many of those as possible. We are recording this webinar. It'll be going on YouTube after the event, and we'll be sending a link around to that. So if you need to leave early for any reason, that's absolutely fine. I think that's all the housekeeping out of the way. So with that, we thought it might be useful if we kick things off with a poll, just to find out what the people in attendance at this event are up to at the moment, what sort of stage you're at. So we should have a poll, yeah, that's just appeared on screen. So just select one of those which most accurately describes your current position, just to get a flavour of where people in the room are at the moment. And I'll just give you 10 or 15 seconds on that. Okay, shall we have a look at where we're up to with those results? So 26% of people in a job at the moment but looking for a different job, 56% of people currently out of work but looking for another job, and then a few people taking time out, considering further study, that's absolutely fine. It's useful to get a sense of where people are up to in the room, but actually wherever you are at the moment, hopefully this session can be of use to you. And also, wherever you are at the moment, we just wanted to let you know before we start that this service is still here to help you as a graduate. So as a graduate, you can access pretty much everything you could as just struggling to get on the next slide. Okay. I'm just struggling. Sorry about this. Give me a second. Okay, there we go. We got there eventually. So yeah, as I was saying, as a graduate of the University of Leeds, you still have access to a lot of support from the Careers Centre. Your support and what you can access doesn't change much as a graduate compared to what it was as a student. A few things you can do. Don't worry about these links, by the way. They're not in a very clear colour, but they will be shared in the email after the event. So you can register as a graduate on My Career, which is our career management system that we use. You may have been familiar with that as a student. That gives you access to online appointments, all our events, many of which are still taking place online at the moment, given the current situation, and all our online vacancies. Plus the 2020 website, whether you're a 2020 graduate before that, there's loads of useful resources, webinar recordings, blog posts, up-to-date information that's taken place since the COVID pandemic started, and it's differed into different groups. So depending on what stage of your career planning you're at, you can have a look at that. LinkedIn Learning, we have graduate access to LinkedIn Learning, which is a spin-off of the main LinkedIn platform, a career sort of development tool. You can learn new skills, develop new things, If you think you've got gaps in your experience that you'd like to address before entering the world of work, that's a really good way of doing that. So there's a link there which we'll send around, which shows you how to access that. And there's also the Leeds Internship Programme, which is a program of exclusive paid graduate opportunities, which are only advertised to University of Leeds graduates. So it's really good because, yeah, you've got less competition, basically. Opportunities are being advertised now. We tend to only have a few on at any one time, given the exclusive nature of it. You can see a couple of the ones there. I think as well, it's worth pointing out, internship, people often think that's very short-term things. Actually, a lot of the things that are advertised through the Leeds Internship Programme are either permanent or sort of medium long term. So there's a lot of 6 to 12 months things. So even the things that aren't permanent, often quite long term. You can sign up. I don't know whether that QR code will work on here, but if you have got your phones and you want to try it, give it a go. Again, this link will be sent around afterwards. So don't worry too much if you haven't. And there'll be more roles coming at the end of September, early October. So well worth signing up to get updates on that, even if either of those take your fancy. So that's kind of my bit. Just generally as well, don't be shy to contact the Career Centre. Use us if you need any help with CVs, applications, interview advice, anything like that. We're still available for you as a graduate, and obviously we're well versed in doing stuff online now. So even if you're not based in Leeds, that's absolutely no problem. But that's kind of me done for now. I've done my intro. As I said, we'll come to questions at the end. Do pop them in the Q&A bit as we go, though. Don't be shy about getting those and like those questions if there's one you like the look of. But without further ado, I will hand over to our main speaker, Danielle from the Graduate Recruitment Bureau. Over to you, Danielle.
Hi, Tom. Thank you very much for the introduction there. And yeah, thanks for joining, everybody. It looks like we've got over 100 people watching today, which is absolutely fantastic. What I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about myself, but let's go and do another quick poll. So what we would like to do is really find out what everyone's biggest hurdles have been so far when looking for a graduate job. So I believe the poll is in front of you, and I think you should have about 30 seconds or so to quickly fill that out. But today, what I'd really like to do is just talk through a little bit of a path on how to approach job hunting as a graduate or a postgraduate. And as we've seen, some of you already are in perhaps a job post-university, and how you can look at fueling what you're doing already to really secure the graduate career that you're looking for. What I will do is touch upon looking at sort of the current situation. I'll look at how to approach your job search generally, where to look for jobs, because often we look in just one place, and there are many different ways we can go about looking for jobs. We will then discuss skills that are in demand by employers at the moment, and a few tips on how to make yourself stand out in the workplace and in the recruitment processes, as well as how to stand out at interview or assessment centre. So quite a few different things we will do, and then a Q&A at the end quickly as well. So I think the polls should be in, so it'd be great to look at those results. Okay, so as for the biggest hurdle, not having enough experience for jobs. Okay, that's certainly something that we can talk about today. And lack of available graduate jobs, not knowing where to look. Okay, that's something we'll touch upon, and not being sure of which direction to go in. So with all of those, all extremely valid and very relevant, and I think we'll probably touch upon answers for all of those questions. And like Tom said, any questions as we're going along, please do put them in the chat function at the bottom. But just quickly, so just to give you a bit of an overview on myself, so I graduated from Leeds University in 2009. I studied philosophy and politics. And yeah, my job search understand how everyone is feeling at the moment. It was certainly quite challenging back then, but yeah, there are lots of things we can do to make that job search a little bit easier. But I have 10 years experience nearly in graduate recruitment. So I work for a company called the Graduate Recruitment Bureau. We do a huge amount of graduate roles in industries as varied as IT and finance through to engineering, sales, marketing, operations, supply chain, so a bit of everything really. But I've recruited hundreds and hundreds of graduates across that time into different spaces. So I've got quite a good understanding of what companies are looking for and how you can stand out. But I started as a graduate trainee, so I've been through the process of looking for a graduate job in a recession, starting a career, and then working my way up. And I've been in management here for about 5 years. So yeah, hopefully got some good things to talk about. So what I'm going to do next is move on to, a little bit about Graduate Recruitment Bureau. So as a company, we place about 800 graduates a year into these different sectors and work with a lot of SMEs, startups, and FTSE 10 businesses. So a lot of the information that I give you today will be very relevant for your job search in lots of different areas. So moving on to the headlines. I don't think we need to sort of talk about the current pandemic too much. I think we're all vastly aware of what's happening and what's been going on. But I think we need to look at it as an opportunity to stand out and make the most of the opportunities that are out there. So over the last couple of days, looking at Prospects Luminate, they've said that the level of graduate vacancies is about 50% of what it normally is. Okay, so that's still a huge amount of jobs out there. And that's graduate schemes, that's entry-level roles, that's trainee positions. So it's not all doom and gloom by any stretch. We are in a recession, but we still have a thriving economy and lots of opportunities. So I definitely encourage people to think nice and positively and proactively about the current pandemic, because yeah, you've got every opportunity to try and secure the right career for you, or get yourself in the right direction. So which jobs should you apply for? This is a great question. A lot of people ask, and really a lot of this comes down to what skills do you want to use? There's so many industries. I can't really go into every single one here, but you have to look at the skills that you've gained from your degree. That's the first place to look. So have you done a business degree or a business related degree? That's really going to help you look at perhaps more of the commercial opportunities that are out there. Perhaps in sales or marketing or advertising. You may have done more of an analytical degree like mathematics or economics. Those degrees, the skills that you've got, they're your analytical skills. So look for careers in things that are going to build upon that, like perhaps commercial analytics, finance, IT, consultancy. You've got lots of opportunities there with your analytical skills, and analytical skills are often very, very, very in demand, so build upon them. What I would also say is remember your skills that are from outside of your degree as well, like your, you may have done extracurriculars, you may be sporty, you may have a second language. Think about all those things that you can bring to the table, because as a graduate, you're going to have far more skills than you're possibly giving yourself credit for. In particular, one of them is very often your communication skills. So we hear quite often from graduate employers that graduates are very good at being emotionally intelligent and can communicate verbally in really positive business-like ways, so communicating in a commercial setting. And those skills are absolutely integral to your graduate job search, because it's what gets you networking and speaking, and yeah, really try and utilize your verbal communication skills as much as possible in this process. One thing I would say, which kind of correlates a little bit with the current pandemic, is think about the skills that you have and what sectors they could be useful for. So at the moment, it would probably be sensible to not focus your search on things like aviation or tourism industry. You still do that, but if you want to go into that, but look more broadly as well, because there are industries which are thriving at the moment. You've got cybersecurity, tech consultancy, healthcare. These industries are doing really, really well. So think about how might your skills fit an industry that perhaps you haven't considered so far. Just to give you an example, recently I saw that the NHS were trying to advertise their graduate roles, which were outside of being a doctor or a nurse, but could be great careers for people from lots of different backgrounds. So think about different industries, don't be narrow. Yeah, also I mentioned this briefly before, but think about different types of businesses. So you have your startups, which you may have never heard of, and on the other hand, you may have your big FTSE 10 businesses that everyone's applying to because they've got the big schemes. Really think strategically, how do I want to approach my job search? Do I want to just go for the jobs that are the schemes, or do you want to also go for the entry-level positions that are still graduate jobs, but might be easier for you to get into those big businesses or get into the industry that you want to? Yeah, and I think, just in terms of my feedback as a recruiter, make sure that the jobs that you're applying for are the jobs that you really want to do. Don't apply to everything and anything, because the recruiting company or the hiring managers will see that you don't really have that passion. So think about, what do you really want to do? How can you use your skills, and how do you want to use your skills? And really research what industries are out there. So you've got lots of different things like Prospects, Milk Round, Career Services, GRB website, lots of things for you to, or tools for you to go and research, right, what job might I want to particularly do, and how does that fit my long-term goals? But certainly do your research. Great. So where to look for a job? There are so many different places for you to look, and often some of them are forgotten. So we have your typical jobs boards. So you've got things like Reed, Indeed, Monster, Glassdoor, all of those sort of job boards that are used for all different manner of graduate jobs. You can type in keywords, you can type in examples like graduate marketing executive, but those jobs boards are very, very, very good, and they normally are a pool of jobs from lots of different places. So they work on an algorithm picking up lots of jobs. They're there for you. So if I was looking for a job, that would be one of the key places to go to. I would also definitely utilise your career service at your at Leeds University. I did that myself in my second year. I did an elective course to find out about employability studies, and yeah, that got me into thinking about recruitment as an industry. But certainly you've got the advice that a career service can give you is brilliant, and they can often give you quite a lot of time as well, and their knowledge on different industries. So definitely utilize that if you haven't done already. Again, recruitment consultants can be brilliant. So we do graduate recruitment into lots of industries. There are also industry specific recruiters. So if you wanted to go into management consultancy, for example, then I would definitely recommend doing a bit of a Google, which recruitment consultants specialize in management consultancy, and get in touch with them directly and get your CV over to them. And again, many recruiters will recruit at different levels, so it's always worth you getting your CV to as many as possible, especially local agencies if you are in different cities and towns across the country. The two areas that I think are often forgotten are company websites. So if you know the type of business that you want to work for, perhaps you've got a passion for FMCG, I would definitely advise going onto the websites of these businesses and looking to see what they've got. Often they've got a few roles up there or things posted every couple of weeks, and that will give you an opportunity to apply on their website, so gets your CV to the top of the pile. Equally, if you've got a real passion for an industry and you know a company that's out there and you'd love to work for them, then why don't you send through a speculative CV? Very often these companies, when they do start hiring again, which may be 2-3 months down the line, so not very long, your CV is then there for them to go to. So that's often a forgotten avenue, but if you're nice and proactive, it can really work in your favour. So yeah, company websites is great. And don't forget just to network. So who do you know? Who do your parents know? Who do your parents work for? Perhaps your parents' friends. You might have friends that graduated in the last couple of years. It's worth speaking to them. How did they get their job? Do they know anybody? Yeah, really just having conversations with people and thinking, every person I speak to that's in work could be someone that helps me get that little bit closer to the job I want to go into. So a few different options there. Yeah, very, very, very useful. One little tip I'm definitely going to give you guys is always have your phone on and pick up calls to unknown numbers. So quite often recruiters or companies will call you to offer you an interview or talk about your CV. And if you haven't got your voicemail set up and you don't pick up calls to unknown numbers, you might miss out on that opportunity. And I see it very regularly. Someone calls me back a week after I've called them, and the job is gone and they've missed it. So definitely get that voicemail set up and definitely be aware of who's trying to reach out to you, because often, especially in this climate, recruiters and internal recruiters might be they might not call you back as many times because there's so many people, more people looking for work. So just keep your ears and eyes open for everything. So in-demand skills employers are looking for. So again, this is very, very, very relevant to different industries. And I can give you some examples. For instance, IT. So if you want to go into some form of IT position, companies and graduate employers are often looking for those added skills that you may have done in your spare time. So that could be programming. It could be learning a language like Java or C++. And if you've got self-taught on your CV, they will love that. That goes down so well. So if you haven't necessarily done something in your degree, think about how you can, do it in your spare time. You've also got industries like analytics. So if you wanted to go into a data analyst position, for instance, a lot of those roles will be looking for solid Excel capabilities. So things like having experience with macros, formulas, pivot tables, different functions, or VBA, things like that. So if you haven't done that in your course, that doesn't matter. What shows is that you've gone out of your way to think about how you can build those skills into your profile. So as long as you have Excel, you can go on to things like YouTube and watch some videos on how to do more of the advanced functions. Yeah, and those things often really do help you get the job, especially if Excel, for instance, is part of the test needed to go through the recruitment process. Other things, so I don't know about you guys, but over the last few months, it's been a great opportunity to use some spare time trying to teach yourself those little skills that might be needed for different industries. So you've also got, what have we got? Digital Google Garage for digital marketing. But yeah, if you could sort of utilize on your CV, show what you've been doing over the last 6 months. Companies again are really going to like that if you've utilized this COVID-19 situation to your advantage, to show that you're proactive and you're really thinking, right, how can I bring those skills to the table? And yeah, you've got your soft skills and your hard skills. So soft skills are those sort of communication skills we talked about earlier, and how to build relationships. If you wanted to go into sales, it's worth thinking, right, how can I get some experience perhaps selling something or working to some targets, versus those hard skills, those more technical skills. So again, each different industry is going to be looking for different things. A lot of graduate jobs will teach you what you need to know. They're not expecting you to have 10 years experience already. They're looking for your potential, okay? And I would really stress to always think about that. It's all about your potential. So if you want to go into it, apply for it. If you've got the very basics of the skills needed, fine, apply for it. If it's a graduate job, they will do the training. It's your job to show them that you want that training and you want to grab the opportunity with both hands. So, how to stand out in the job market. So one question people ask me all the time is, how can I make my CV that little bit better? So my advice here is to have a 2-page Word document CV. 1 page on PDF is fine because it covers the same amount of text, but I would definitely steer clear of anything more than 2 pages, because by the 3rd page, it's not going to get read, it's going to get forgotten. So 2-page CV is standard. And my best bit of advice here is at the top of your CV, have a personal profile section, like a little punchy paragraph that really tailors you to that role in particular. So if you're applying for a marketing position, say at the top of your CV, I'm applying, I'd like to apply for a marketing role, or I'm passionate about starting my career in marketing. Because that first bit is the first bit that a company is going to see. So if they can see that your motivations are there, perfect. I've seen many CVs sent my way saying, I'd like to go into finance, and then they've applied for a, perhaps a sales role. You clearly don't want to go into it, so that might be a reason why you don't get called back. But just tailor each application as much as possible, and make sure you've got all your skills on there. Put all of your work experience in reverse chronological order, and just show the company what you've done. Get those buzzwords on there because otherwise the company will never know. And equally, have a little about me section, because employers, especially over the last couple of years, really do read that. So if you've done lots of extracurricular things, gone traveling, have a different language or a certain skill, absolutely get it on there, because you never know when a recruiter comes back to you about a job you've never heard of, but actually ticks all of those skills that you have. When it comes to cover letters, unless a company is asking for it, don't you don't need one for every single job that you apply for, okay? So really do think about that. Make sure a cover letter is, again, tailored to the role and to the company. So more often than not, if a company is looking for a cover letter, that's because they want you to convey a real passion for them as a business. So have a look at their business, look at what they do, really make sure you can show why you want to work for that particular business. And equally, that gives you an opportunity to talk about the industry that you would like to work for. So if you would like to work in the market research industry, for example, you might want to allude to market research news that you've heard, or some of the skills that might be useful for that industry, like quantitative and qualitative research skills. You might want to add in a bit about your dissertation. But make sure that your cover letters are tailored to the role rather than just stating that you want the job. That will really go in your favour. If you have a master's degree, often these aren't a necessity, but they are a nice thing to have if you have them. Make sure that you are selling yourself and you're selling those extra skills that you've got over and above your degree. Another really good thing is LinkedIn. So if you haven't got one already, get yourself a LinkedIn profile. Gives you an opportunity to highlight that you're looking for work. Gives you an opportunity to talk about your experiences and your degree, and any extracurriculars that you might have. And importantly, gives you an opportunity to talk about the industry that you want to go into. So again, try and convey that passion for a particular industry or a particular type of job on your LinkedIn profile, because again, a lot of employers will look at that profile before inviting you through to an interview. So make sure it's nice and tailored properly, and you're not saying, oh, I just want to go into sales and then applying for a consultancy role. Make sure things do tally up, because employers will look at that. Yeah, and I think with anybody that is looking to change career or change industries, a lot of this is exactly the same. If you have 2 or 3 years experience in a particular industry, and you want to go back into a graduate job, absolutely, you can still do that at any point, as long as you have graduated in the past. But make sure that you're tailoring your applications to that new industry. So if you have experience in town planning, for instance, and you want to go into digital marketing, they seem very different, but both jobs will have an element of client interaction and data analysis. So you want to be thinking of those skills that marry the two. How can I get those skills across in my applications? So that's important, but certainly you can move industries at any point. Just be aware that the salary might go down a little bit if you're going back to graduate level, but things go up again quite quickly. So just to move on to give you a few little tips about making the most of each interview. So yeah, here, if you've got yourself through to an interview, congratulations. Use that opportunity the best you can. And the biggest bit of advice I can give here is to simply prepare as much as possible. So that includes research into the company, research into the role. Make sure you understand the role, make sure you have questions about it, make sure you can convey that real interest in understanding what it is this career path could offer you. So research is absolutely key for that. You want to make sure you know your CV inside and out. Research your interviewers. Who are they going to be? Have a look on LinkedIn. That might give you some opportunities to think of some questions that are just related to them. If you can go into a business and really show a passion for them, that speaks volumes. So do your research as much as possible. What's quite sort of leads on from that as well is make sure you understand the interview process. So is it going to be a one-on-one interview? Is it going to be an assessment day? How many stages are there? Is there going to be a test? This is your opportunity you need to ask these questions, because sometimes they won't tell you at the beginning. So ask these questions straight up, know what is expected of you, and again, prepare for it. There's lots of advice out there on how to prepare for assessment centres and one-on-one interviews. So if it's a competency-based interview, make sure that you have done your, you've got the STAR technique out there where you can prepare around situations, tasks, actions, and results. And often, if you've done that preparation, it's great for all of your interviews that are upcoming. So really here, knowledge is key to make the best of all of the interviews that you get. And to do your best, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. Not many people get the first job that they interview for at graduate level, and often it takes a little bit of time to understand what to do and how to put your best foot forward. But key pointers here and key tips are: do your research, ask lots of questions during the interview, and if you don't get the job, think about, how you can use that as an opportunity. Take that feedback and build that into your next interview. So if they're telling you you didn't give enough depth to your interview questions, for your next interview, you then know to prepare around depth. But often people don't ask for feedback, but please do, because it's, there's fewer jobs around, so you want to make the best of each of those interviews. So yeah, I mean, so in terms of the GRB, we do a lot of different types of opportunities, as I mentioned. Got quite a lot on the website at the moment, and things are picking up, which is great. So we do have some jobs in all industries at the moment. Our website is great, so please do go and have a look at grb.uk.com. Not only are there jobs up there, but there's loads of careers as advice for you as well. So where to look for work, how to prepare, how to write a good CV templates, and we also have recently started, there you go, there's the website. We've also recently started a career mentoring service. So if you are feeling like you really do need to talk to somebody and not sure which direction to go in, which career path to apply to, you can apply for, to find a mentor, and we'll match you up with somebody. So yeah, there's a new option for you there. And yeah, we've got a few links here, which I think will all be sent round. And then, yeah, I think Tom is going to come back now, I think, for any questions that have come through whilst I've been talking.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Danielle. Really interesting talk and a lot of good advice there. So we've been receiving questions as we've been going. As I mentioned at the start, we did also give you the opportunity to submit questions when you register for this event. So I think we'll just kick off with a couple of them to begin with, and then we'll move on to some of your questions. Also, just to say, while Danielle was talking, I did try and answer a few of your questions as they came in. They should be in the answered section of the question and answer bit. I haven't answered very many because some of them are a bit lengthy to type out an answer during the session, but yeah, there are some of those that I've answered there, so do take a look in there if you have asked a question. But we'll move on to those in a moment. But just to start with, based on a lot of people, I think we've got a few attendees who have sort of graduated a bit further ago, so as well as people who have just graduated recently, we've got a couple of people who are maybe a couple of years out of university, or maybe a bit further than that. And there's a lot of talk about in the questions about confidence building, how that impacts on your chances of getting a role. So I guess to begin with, if it has been a little while since an individual has graduated and they either haven't got a job or still figuring out what to do you think that's a problem? And what tips do you have for addressing those sort of gaps in someone's employment, even if they've been quite short?
Yeah, that's a great question. And often it's actually a misconception that a gap is going to be a problem. More often than not, it is not a problem at all. So if you've been out of work and looking for work, and you've had, there's been a pandemic, so you haven't been doing paid work for a little while, it's not a problem as long as you can show the potential employer or the company that you're applying to what you've been doing in that time. So like I said before, think about putting, self-taught programming skills or self-taught like a little free course online. And I believe the Job Centre and different places have been offering free courses over the last 6 months. So do those. Often it just takes a couple of days a week, and that's get those things on your CV. If you are feeling like you don't know which way to go, I think again just doing your research into different industries, because you don't want to leave it 4 or 5 years and then look for a graduate job, because all of the next year's graduates are going to be, they're going to be up against you with those applications. So if you want to take a year out, go traveling, do it. There's not many times in your life where you've got that opportunity. But if if you've been looking for work and it's been a struggle, don't worry about it. Just keep plowing on. But what I would say is, if you've been applying to a lot in one industry and not hearing back, and not getting very far, it might be worth looking into a new industry. So a lot of people tell me they want to go into management consultancy, but really it is very difficult to get into it. And often there are brilliant jobs out there like analytics or management or business analysis that use similar skills. Even recruitment consultancy uses similar skills, but they're different industries. So think about how you can research what else is out there for you. But certainly don't be disheartened. If you struggle with having a bit of confidence at interviews because of a gap, just fake it till you make it. It's a great saying. You want to just go into that interview with all that confidence, all that possibility, and all that sort of desire for the job. And often that is what gets you the position. So just be as confident as possible each time.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. Thank you very much for that. I think this one also came in from someone who I think had been out of university a little bit longer, but I think this is always relevant even at an early stage as well. But if you are at a stage where you're experiencing a lot of rejection and unsuccessful applications, I know there was a question in the comment as well about when you get an unsuccessful application but no feedback, and you just get an automated reply, and that can be quite confidence draining. Have you got any tips on kind of how to deal with rejection and how to keep your confidence up if that's happening to you a lot?
Yeah, definitely. My biggest bit of advice here is just please do not take it personally. You are right now possibly up against 2-3 times as many applications for one job. Okay, so just to give you an example, if I have a job that I post and I have 150 applications, often it's going to be the first 50 or 60 applications that come through that stand a chance of getting through to a shortlist anyway. So if you're one of those people that applied at the end of the deadline, or just you're up against a lot of people, that doesn't mean you don't have a great CV. It just means lots of people are applying. So if just please don't take it personally. My biggest bit of advice here is just keep applying to as many jobs as possible. Think strategically. So make sure your CV is tailored, make sure your cover letter is tailored, make sure your CV is the best that it can be, and utilize those different places where you can look for a job, and do all of that. And if you do all of that, you will hear back. But yeah, I do completely sympathize in this climate, but please don't take it personally. It's just that you're up against a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think to chip in with sort of my advice, it's one of those, it can be slightly irritating advice when people who are in jobs and set up tell you this, but it will turn around eventually. even if it's been a lengthy process, you know, you will get there in the end. You've got skills and experience, and it can take a short amount of time, it can take a long amount of time, but you'll find you'll get there eventually. So yeah, it's kind of cliched advice, but keep your head up if you can, it will turn around. Another
just to chip in there as well, Tom, in the last recession, there was actually, graduate employers did see a shortfall come the autumn. So yeah, that I think is just worth bearing in mind, that there might be a lot of companies that have pulled graduate roles or decided not to do the scheme this year, but then once we get into autumn and towards Christmas, they might actually have some shortfall or decide they want to hire again. So yeah, it's picking up week by week, but yeah, just please do keep at it.
Yeah, good advice. Another sort of theme we were getting from some of the pre-submitted questions was about changing careers, or even if you weren't established in a career and changing career paths. What would your advice be for anyone who's looking to, I know we touched on it a little bit in the presentation, but your advice for anyone who is looking to change careers? And someone even asked, is it advisable at the moment in the current climate?
Yeah, that's another really, really good question. I think, you know, if you're in a job and you're looking to change careers, I would really, you know, get you to think, is this the right moment to change careers if there's not many positions out there that you like, that are in the industry you want to move into? So, you know, in many ways right now, being in a job is a great position to be in. But certainly if you do feel like it's not the right career path for you long term, then it's never too soon to start thinking, right, what do I want to do? And if you're not sure, get networking, get researching, talk to your friends about what they do. Often, you know, I'm speaking to my friends that also graduated 10 years ago, and I actually have no idea what they do on a daily basis until I ask them. And it's actually often really interesting and things that I've never thought of or considered. So just start talking to people in those industries, linking in with perhaps people in that industry that you might want to go into. Often people are great and they might look over your CV for you or give you some advice if you reach out to them. You never know. But in terms of actually moving industry, you can do it, absolutely, because the most important thing is you have that desire to move into that new industry, because they will train you and they will give you those skills. And if you can get a really tailored CV over to them, then they'll know that that's what you want to do. So like I said before, if you're in an industry like, let's say you've been working in sales and you've got some experience, but you feel that perhaps your heart isn't in it for the rest of your life, that's no problem. The skills that you're going to have gained will be brilliant. You'll have networking skills, you'll have perhaps presentation skills, selling. All of these skills can be used in many, many industries, from consultancy to marketing to IT, everything. So you often have a lot more skills than you give yourself credit for when moving into a new industry. But just don't, if you're in work, start looking. But if you're out of work, then it's never too soon to start tailoring your applications to that new industry. And if you use that tip for tailoring the top of your CV to that new industry, then at least that company will be able to see straight away that you want to move into that industry, rather than them looking at your CV and thinking, oh, this person's come from a very different background, they obviously aren't interested in the role. You need to really highlight that you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Good advice there. So we've had a lot of questions through on the question and answer function on this.
Great.
So we'll get cracking with a few of those, I think. And people have been using the like functionality as well, which is great. So I am going to be fairly democratic, at least to begin with, and we'll start with the ones that received the most likes. So by a bit of a distance, I think the most popular question we've had through is from Martha, who asks, any advice about looking for jobs in the non-profit sector? A lot of job searching websites are focused on other types of careers, for example, marketing, business, IT. So I guess if we can make that a two-part question, firstly, do you have any advice about looking for jobs in the non-profit sector? And then if we can widen it out, if advice for looking for jobs that maybe aren't so commonly advertised on the main job searching websites.
Yeah, another great question. Thanks, Martha. So in terms of non-for-profit, it is a less commercial type role, whatever the roles might be within those organisations. So often those businesses don't go through recruitment consultancies, especially at graduate level. So I would say here you want to be researching the company. So who are the companies that you might want to work for? And I would approach them directly and look at their websites and be very proactive, because there are, you know, a good chunk of people that want to go into non-for-profit and fewer positions you see advertised. So this is where you have to really be, again, very organized with your job search and your approach. And I would do things like go on to Google and Google in non-for-profit organizations in my region, go on to LinkedIn, search for non-for-profits, and get a list of businesses that could be what you want to do, and apply directly. But yeah, if it's a very specific industry, then I would do it that way. Sorry, what was the other part of the question?
Well, just about more widely, not
Oh yes, of course.
Other less common.
Yeah, like less known jobs. Again, it's probably similar advice. You could look at, you know, if you've looked on Milkround and Prospects and your careers service and you're just not seeing the industry that you really want to go into, there might be a reason for that. It might be that that industry isn't really a graduate industry. It's more of an industry people go into 2 or 3 jobs down the line, which I have seen in some areas of like planning and advertising. So that gives you an opportunity there to look at what jobs would help you get to that position in, you know, two jobs time, for instance. So if it's all about gaining analytics experience in order to go into marketing analytics, you know, you have to research that jump and see how you would get there. And then again, my advice would be perhaps to try and network and reach out to a few people on LinkedIn who are doing the job that you want to do and ask them their opinion. It's as simple as that. You know, if you're a graduate, reaching out on LinkedIn saying, hi, I'd love to work in your industry. You know, UX, for instance, is a big growing industry at the moment. You might want to reach out to those people and say, hi, you know, I'm thinking of going into this industry. Have you got any tips for me? Would you mind looking at my CV? And I guarantee that people will respond to that. So, you know, just try and ask questions where you possibly can.
Yeah, great. Again, just to chip in with a couple of things from my perspective on that. Prospect has already been mentioned as a sort of job site, but also it's a career planning site, so loads of information. Each sector and each role has a different page with information about what the role entails, salary expectations, what you'll be doing day to day, that sort of thing. All of those also have dedicated job sites, so not just the big milk round prospect type sites, but specific for. So for example, charity jobs will have charity-based job sites. So they're well worth keeping an eye on. Often advertise much fewer roles and they might not be graduate roles, but worth keeping an eye on. Also book an appointment with a careers consultant. So through my career, you can still book those appointments as a graduate, and I can't promise we'll be able to help you with everyone, but we might be able to use a bit of our knowledge. And the Leeds internship program for the non-profit sector. Maybe not charity jobs yet, but yeah, certainly non-profit stuff. So that's well worth keeping an eye on. Cool. Let's move on to the second most popular question, which is from Jack. He says some companies have a number of applicants for one role, and we use an algorithm or software to filter through the application. What techniques do you recommend to include to help get past this first stage of the application process?
Sure, that's a really good question. And I don't think that it's often as impersonal as an algorithm. I think often there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes, and it's often a lot more people focused than people realize. So when your CVs go through to, let's say, an assessment or sort of a graduate scheme, often those roles, those CVs are processed individually, one by one, and certainly with a recruitment consultant, all applications are processed one by one by viewing your CV. So it's a lot more human than you realise. Again, the important bit here, Jack, is to tailor your CV to that particular role as much as possible. Look at the job requirements. So at the bottom of a job description, there's often a little section that talks about job requirements. Look at everything it mentions and try and mention all of those things in your CV. So if it mentions experience using Microsoft Excel, get that on your CV. If it talks about needing French as a second language, and you speak French, make sure that that's on your CV, because if they're not there, there's no buzzwords for the recruiters to look for in order to see that you have the required skills. So just I think again this comes back to just making sure that your CV is selling you in the best possible light. And if you don't have the experience, don't panic. Again, make sure that it's tailored and saying, I would love to get into this industry. So I would love to work for an FMCG organization in a marketing capacity. If you get that on there, then you've got buzzwords like FMCG, marketing, on your CV, even if you haven't got the work experience. So just make sure your CV is nice and tailored.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people, and I always used to think you have to be quite cute about matching what it says in the job application to your thing. So if it says, marketing skills, you have to not use those exact words. Don't worry, use those exact words. Be blatant, make it obvious that you fit the criteria, and that's a real help.
Yeah. Just to chip in there as well, I really, really want to stress this, that a job spec and the requirements on a job spec are a dream list for the employer. They're not expecting everybody to have all of it. So as long as you have the core skills that they're looking for, then apply for it. They will train you in that position. Look at the job spec as where you will get to in the position, not what they're expecting you to have already.
Yeah, good advice. I think there's a really interesting question here from it's an anonymous attendee, but talks about so they're not getting past the first application stage at the moment, and they're not receiving feedback due to higher demand. They've had applications checked by the career centre, so they're confident they're good, so they're worrying it's a lack of relevant experience. But obviously, a lack of relevant experience is what's causing them to not get to the next stage. So it's a vicious cycle where there's no way of gaining the experience, and that's what's meaning they can't get through the application system. So do you have any advice on how to gain relevant experience, or any experience that could be relevant? And I think that will be a thing to think about. It doesn't have to be relevant, and particularly how you might go about doing that at the moment in the current climate.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think there's different ways of looking at this really. If you've sent out lots of applications and you're just not hearing back, then I think it's time to diversify what you're looking for, and really sort of spend that time looking at opportunities. So for instance, I hear a lot of people say, oh, I want to do anything other than sales, and I think, well, so many jobs out there have an element of sales within them, but they're not what people think of as sales. So sales isn't necessarily by any stretch, especially at graduate level, knocking on people's doors, but there are roles out there that might give you some brilliant experience in a sales type environment where you're speaking to clients on the phone or businesses on the phone, which brilliant experience, just having that kind of interaction with external parties. So that can be, something to look for. So just, big bit of advice there, diversify what you're applying to. And also make sure that you're qualified for the roles that you're applying to. So quite often people tell me they don't hear back and they might not be applying for graduate jobs. They might be applying for jobs where you need to have a year or two's worth of experience. So just make sure that you are applying to the right positions. And what was the last bit of that question, sorry?
It was about how to gain
the experience, yes, of course. So a lot of graduates don't realise that if you have a week's worth of work experience on your CV versus 3 or 4 months of experience on your CV, when I look at that as a recruiter, it doesn't really make that much difference to me which one you have, because both show that you want to go into that industry. So I am not a fan of, I certainly wouldn't recommend doing unpaid internships or anything like that. But if you can get an internship, often, they do, pay a little bit, get a week's worth of work experience for a local company down the road. And if you can afford to, maybe do a couple of days for free and say, look, I'd love to work in your industry. Can you give me a couple of days work experience? And having that on your CV is brilliant. Obviously, right now with the current situation, a lot of things are happening remotely. And it's just a case of being proactive, because I'm certain that there are some businesses out there, if you approached them and said, look, I'd love to work for you for a couple of days, they may still be able to give you some work to do over Zoom, or give you some things that will help you on your search. So don't think that you have to have a year placement or anything like that to get that job or get seen by an employer. But again, like I mentioned before, think about those free courses that you can do online. Then you might have some links at the careers service there, and I can try and send some through as well. But so many free courses out there at the moment, which could be about copywriting, data analysis, digital marketing, or even just like theoretical evening courses for a week. If it's free, get it done, put it on your CV, and it will show that employer that you're really doing everything you can to secure that graduate job in that industry.
Yeah, and that comes back to LinkedIn Learning as well. So in the email, we'll send that after that. Have a look at LinkedIn Learning if you feel you're lacking a bit of experience. That's a really good way of picking up some extra skills. We have ticked just past 1:30. I can see a few people are leaving, but I think Danielle's free to stick around for a little bit longer. So we will just carry on for 10 or 15 minutes longer. But yeah, if you do need to leave, then absolutely feel free. So next question, one that got a few likes, so we'll go with this one. It's quite a specific one, but see people want to know about it. When an employer asks for an expected salary or a salary requirement, how do you answer that question in a way that's not deemed too high? They will have previously researched the average salary for the role. And when would that sort of question normally come up in your experience, if ever?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, actually. Really, really, really good. So when it comes to salary, I think you just have to be honest with what you're looking for. So if you are looking for 20,000, tell them that. If you're looking for 25,000, tell them that. You really have to look at the parameters of each job you're applying for. So most jobs will have a salary bracket attached to it. If the salary bracket is there for a fresh graduate, again, just be honest with what you're looking for and be able to back up why they should offer you that salary. So if there's a salary bracket of between 20 and 25,000, but you're looking for 22 and above because the job's in central London and you just need that amount, be able to back that up with why you're looking for that particular amount. So it's a tricky one. What I would suggest definitely don't do is when a company offers you a job and that it's within that's what they are looking to offer, trying to negotiate much higher than that in this climate is probably going to be quite difficult. especially if you know the bracket going into the job. But yeah, I think just be honest with the potential employer about what you're looking for. And remember that graduate salaries go up. A lot of people forget this. So we've got plenty of clients where the salary might start between 20 and 23,000, let's say. And after 6 months, after the probation, that will jump up to potentially sort of 26,000 quite quickly. So always remember that it's just the starting point. Almost every company has a salary review in their first year. And once you gain that experience, your salary will go up and up and up. So just don't shoot yourself in the foot by saying you're only looking at salaries over 27,000 or something, because you will miss out on so many fantastic opportunities, which may start slightly lower but go up to that within no time.
Yeah, very sound advice there. So let's just do a couple more questions. Let's have a look what we've got. Right. So there's a question here from Brandon, who says he's applying for roles I'm qualified to do, but I don't have industrial experience, which is sometimes stated as essential. Is it still worth applying for these positions?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really is. I would suggest if you're applying for things that state you need the experience, then they're not graduate jobs at all. What I would say though is, you know, you never know. If you have a great degree and all of the skills that they're looking for, but you lack the commercial experience, why don't you send through an application anyway? It's not going to hurt, just in case they, you know, see your CV and think, oh, actually, we'll take a graduate, or we can see that you want to move into this industry and you want to gain that experience. But I would say don't put all of your efforts into applying for roles where it clearly states they want experience, and you don't have it. So by all means do, and it's not unheard of to get those jobs. You know, if you do have a very good degree, especially if you've got a master's potentially. So sometimes an employer may look at someone with a master's and think, well, okay, that's something extra to bring to the table rather than just an undergraduate degree. But yeah, I would say don't put all of your eggs in one basket if you're applying to things you know you don't have the experience for. Great.
And let's just end with one final question, which is from Rebecca, who says, do you have any advice for transitioning from a humanities degree towards tech consulting or other STEM industries? And I guess to widen that question up a little bit more, advice for transitioning from a course that might not appear that it relates to a particular industry. How would you go about doing that? So, you know, humanities.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Rebecca. That's a great question. Tech consultancy is booming at the moment, and there's lots of roles out there. So right now in this climate, you could look at, if it's an option for you, you've got transitioning into a relevant master's degree. If that, you know, if that's feasible. So you might want to do something that's a bit more tech focused, or like a business and tech focused master's, which shows that potential employer that you would like to go into that industry. It's very common for me to see profiles where graduates have done a humanities or an arts background and transitioned in their masters into something a bit more specific, which, you know, by all means you can do. Again, I think it comes back to looking at how you tailor your CV and how you are building your skills that are relevant to that new industry. So if you want to go into tech consulting specifically, there are businesses out there where you might not necessarily need a tech degree because they train you, as long as you can really show them that that's what you want to do. So tailor your CV to tech consulting. Try and get some relevant industry skills on your CV, so any of those tech packages that you can learn in your own time, and just try and incorporate technology into your overall profile, that could be good. Again, with consulting, it's about showing that you've got great communication skills, so you might get some experience in sales or marketing or management, and all of those things will help you go in that direction. So as long as you're tailoring your applications, trying to get maybe a little bit of work experience, or thinking of those other wider things you can do to get noticed, then you've got to think about it in that sort of logical fashion.
Yeah, fantastic. Couldn't agree more. And yeah, always think about the transferable skills. Think about, those things that you've learned through your degree and through your work experience. So much of that is relevant, and look at what they're asking for. And, don't be scared. Don't be put off just because you're from a degree that doesn't necessarily fit. You'll see statistics all over the place where, a very small percentage a lot of the time are actually recruited from degrees that we'd think are a traditional fit. So have the confidence to apply for stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
I totally agree with that. And I just wanted to say that, just because a job says, ideally, we are looking for a life science degree, look for the word ideally. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only type of background that they are open to. They might be open to all manner of different degrees. And I speak to companies on a weekly basis about what their requirements are, and probably about 75 to 80% of the time they tell me, we've got an ideal area of graduate degrees that would suit the role, but we're really open, and as long as somebody has that drive and motivation and the core skills, then that's enough. So do look for that, because there are plenty of jobs out there where you might have a slightly left of centre degree for the industry, but again, as long as you can show that interest, you've got every chance of getting the job.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for that, Danielle. That was really useful. Apologies to those of you whose questions we didn't get round to. Unfortunately, you were a very chatty and inquisitive group today, so we didn't manage to get to everyone's. If you didn't get the chance to have your question answered, I put an email address into the chat, which is graduatesupport@leeds.ac.uk. Do feel free to send any questions through to there, or book an appointment with a careers consultant through My Career, and they'll be able to help you out. I also deliberately, there was a few questions from international graduates there as well, or questions about international focused stuff. We've got another session taking place next week on, at the same time, as I mentioned at the start, about how to choose a career and setting goals. Sam, who's appearing at that session next week, she is an Indian graduate who studied in the UK and is now working in the UK, and she's happy to talk about her experience as an international graduate searching for work in the UK. So we'll roll those questions over to next week, and we'll make sure that Sam gets to a few of those. Yeah, but I'd just like to say thank you very much to Danielle for her time, and we'll say bye to Danielle now. And yeah, we'll be around next week. We'll be around next week as well. So if you haven't already registered for that, it'll be sort of more topics covered and another perspective from another Leeds graduate. And I hope you'll be able to join us there. Thank you all very much for your time and your questions. We'll be sending an email through shortly.
Yeah, and just to add there as well, for anybody that hasn't registered with the Graduate Recruitment Bureau already, please do, because if you go onto our website, it's really easy. Register your CV, register your career choices. We will come back to you, and we will send you jobs from our side that match your requirements. So please do, get your stuff on there, talk to your housemates as well, get them to register their CV. And if anyone has any further questions for me, then please do feel free to get me on LinkedIn and send me any questions, and I'll definitely come back to you.
Great. We hope you've all found that useful. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we hope to see as many of you as possible at next Wednesday's session.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom.
Okay.